Chapter 3, Part 2. The Destroying Angel of Passover. The characterization of the angel of Yahweh as a destroyer in 1 Chronicles 21:16 has ramifications for identifying another mysterious angel in the Old Testament. Let's include verse 15 in the description of the angel. And God sent the angel to Jerusalem to destroy Shahat it. But as he was about to destroy Shahat it, the Lord saw, and he relented from the calamity, and he said to the angel who was working destruction, Mash it. It is enough, now stay your hand. And the angel of the Lord was standing by the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And David lifted his eyes and saw the angel of the Lord standing between earth and heaven, and in his hand a drawn sword stretched out over Jerusalem. All the emphasized words share the same root, shahat. Two are verbs, infinitives. One is a participle. They occur in the same Hebrew verb stem, the hifil. Not surprisingly, the parallel passage in 2 Samuel uses the same terminology and forms. When the angel stretched out his hand toward Jerusalem to destroy shahat it, the Lord relented from the calamity and said to the angel who was working destruction, Mashhit, among the people, it is enough, now stay your hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. Then David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel who was striking the people. 2 Samuel 24, 16-17a. It is clear from both passages that the angel of Yahweh is in view, and that he brings destruction, Mashhit. Interestingly, this is the identical term used to describe the angel of death in the account of the death of the firstborn on the eve of the first Passover. The blood shall be a sign for you, on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy, mashhit, you, when I strike the land of Egypt. Then Moses called all the elders of Israel and said to them, Go and select lambs for yourselves according to your clans, and kill the Passover lamb, for the Lord will pass through to strike the Egyptians. And when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the two doorposts, the Lord will pass over the house and will not allow the destroyer, Mashhit, to enter your houses to strike you. Exodus 12:13, 21, and 23. The Mashhit, who is the angel of Yahweh in 1 Chronicles 21 and 2 Samuel 24, is here distinguished from Yahweh by the line, The Lord will pass over the door and will not allow the destroyer, Mashhit, to enter your houses to strike you. Yet we read elsewhere that it was Yahweh who destroyed the firstborn. He sent Moses his servant, and Aaron whom he had chosen. He struck down all the firstborn in their land, the firstfruits of all their strength. Psalm 105, 26 and 36. For I know that the Lord is great, and that our Lord is above all gods. He it was who struck down the firstborn of Egypt, both of man and of beast. Psalm 135, 5 and 8. Give thanks to the Lord of Lords, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who struck down the firstborn of Egypt, for his steadfast love endures forever. Psalm 136, 3 and 10. Remember, the destroying angel of Yahweh is actually the visible Yahweh. Given that background, these statements are not incompatible. However, Psalm 78, 48-51 seems to complicate matters. He, Yahweh, gave over their cattle to the hail, and their flocks to thunderbolts. He let loose on them his burning anger, wrath, indignation, and distress. A company of destroying angels, Malachi Rahim. He made a path for his anger. He did not spare them from death, but gave their lives over to the plague. He struck down every firstborn in Egypt, the firstfruits of their strength in the tents of Ham. The complication is only surface level. The ESV's translation, destroying angels, is somewhat misleading with respect to the terminology we are attempting to trace. The Hebrew term translated destroying is not the word mashhit, associated with the destroyer in the passages we saw earlier. We should also observe that Psalm 78:49 does not say the destroying angels killed the firstborn. That act is, once again, attributed to Yahweh. Yahweh may have sent angels to enact the other plagues, but the death of the firstborn is attributed to him. These angels do not act in the role of the destroyer. Given the use of the term mashit of that angel in other judgments handed down by Yahweh, a coherent way to reconcile all these passages would be to have Yahweh receiving the credit for the judgment on the firstborn by sending out his destroyer, mashit, the angel of Yahweh, who elsewhere is identified as being the visible Yahweh. This would be akin to God himself being present in the burning bush, yet also having the angel of Yahweh present. These and other passages are the foundation of the later Jewish theology of two powers, two Yahweh figures. Gabriel, Michael, and the Prince of the Host. Gabriel and Michael are best discussed together since their appearances are in the same chapters of the book of Daniel. Along with these two, an unidentified Prince of the Host also appears. Gabriel and Michael are the lone angels mentioned by name in the Bible. Note: this observation is with respect to the Protestant canon. Raphael is mentioned in the book of Tobit as one of the 7 angels who may be in proximity to the glory of God. End note. They are well known as archangels, though that term is not used in the Old Testament, and only Michael is called so in the New Testament. Note: as we will see in our discussion of Second Temple Jewish material, the identification of Gabriel and other named archangels comes from Second Temple Jewish texts. End note. In the book of Daniel, Gabriel's appearance precedes that of Michael, and so we begin with Daniel 8. Daniel 8 opens with the prophet's vision of the ram and the goat. After conquering the ram, the goat's great horn was broken. Out of that horn sprouted 4 horns. From one of those horns came a little horn that grew high and exalted to the heavens, where it cast down some of the heavenly host to the ground. Then, in verse 11, we read that the little horn became great, even as great as the prince, Sar, of the host. This phrase, Prince of the Host, is the same in Hebrew as Commander of the Army in Joshua 5:14. In Daniel 8:15-26, a man comes to assist Daniel in understanding the vision. When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it, and behold, there stood before me one having the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, and it called, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came I was frightened and fell on my face. But he said to me, Understand, O Son of Man, that the vision is for the time of the end. Daniel 8:15-17. The description of this assistance is our focus here, and its wording will prompt us to return to the phrase, Prince of the Host. The man Daniel sees turns out to be the angel Gabriel, but Gabriel is commanded to speak to Daniel by the voice of another man emanating from between the banks of the Ulai River, where Daniel had been when overcome by the vision. The unseen man is superior to Gabriel, for he commands him. Gabriel appears again to Daniel to interpret a subsequent vision. In Daniel 10, the prophet once again sees a vision involving a glorious man clothed in linen. On the 24th day of the first month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, that is, the Tigris, I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a man clothed in linen, with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and the sound of his words like the sound of a multitude. Then I heard the sound of his words, and as I heard the sound of his words, I fell on my face in deep sleep, with my face to the ground. And behold, a hand touched me, and set me trembling on my hands and knees. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly loved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright, for now I have been sent to you. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. And then he said to me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words have been heard, and I have come because of your words. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, but Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I was left there with the kings of Persia, and came to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days. For the vision is for days yet to come. When he had spoken to me according to these words, I turned my face toward the ground and was mute. And behold, one in the likeness of the children of man touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spoke. I said to him who stood before me, O my Lord, by reason of this vision pains have come upon me, and I retain no strength. How can my Lord's servant talk with my Lord? For now no strength remains in me, and no breath is left in me. Again, one having the appearance of a man touched me and strengthened me. And he said, O man greatly loved, fear not, peace be with you, be strong and of good courage. And as he spoke to me, I was strengthened, and said, Let my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. Then he said, Do you know why I have come to you? But now I will return to fight against the prince of Persia, and when I go out, behold, the prince of Greece will come. But I will tell you what is inscribed in the book of truth. There is none who contends by my side against these except Michael, your prince. Daniel 10:4-6 and 9-21. It is important to note several things about this exchange. First, this man is not identified as Gabriel. Second, the speaking man was opposed by the prince of Persia and Greece. Third, the man is not only distinct from Gabriel, he is also not Michael, since he refers to Michael in the third person. Michael assisted this unidentified figure in his spiritual warfare against the prince of Persia. Fourth, the unidentified figure later touches Daniel to strengthen him, informing him in the first person, I will return to fight against the prince of Persia, adding that he expects the prince of Greece will also be part of the battle. While the man is never identified in Daniel 10, it is clear he is neither Gabriel nor Michael. We meet the man again in Daniel 12. At that time shall arise Michael, the great prince who has charge of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never has been since there was a nation till that time. But at that time your people shall be delivered, every one whose name shall be found written in the book. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, 2 others stood, one on this bank of the stream, and one on that bank of the stream. And someone said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the stream, How long shall it be till the end of these wonders? Daniel 12:1-5. The man clothed in linen takes us back to the initial appearance of this mysterious figure in Daniel 10:5. Who is this man? I would argue that he is to be identified with the prince of the host mentioned in Daniel 8:11, the one whom the magnified little horn opposed. In this regard, Bampfield comments, Who then is this man? The author does not identify him with Gabriel, which he could easily have done. Daniel has already met Gabriel, and would have recognized him if there were a renewed acquaintanceship. The man whom he sees in chapter 10 is to be identified with the one who had spoken to Gabriel and sent him to Daniel. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, and it called, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. The man whom Daniel sees in chapter 10, clothed in linen, is described again in 12:6 as the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the stream. He is therefore the man whose voice Daniel heard coming from between the banks of the Ulai when he first saw Gabriel. The man is not Michael. Indeed, he appears to have a higher status than Michael, the patron of Israel, according to 10:21. There is none who contends by my side against these except Michael, your prince. This man seems not to be in charge of any particular nation, but supports those who are on his side. He is therefore to be identified with the prince of the host. This prince of the host is not Michael, for although Michael is the patron of Israel and an archangel, he is not chief of the archangels in intertestamental literature. For example, 1 Enoch 9:1 to 10:16, 20 verse 5, 24:6, 54:6, 60 4-5, 68:2, and 71:9. In the book of Daniel there is no possibility that Michael might be the chief prince. He is known as one of the chief princes, whereas the prince of the host is called the prince of princes. The man described in 10:5-6 is certainly one of the highest angels, a prince and a heavenly military commander. Neither is he to be identified with Gabriel, for he addresses Gabriel himself. These observations are important in light of my earlier contention that the commander, prince of Yahweh's host in Joshua 5:14 is the angel of Yahweh, the visible embodiment of Yahweh himself. Note, it is not possible to link either the figure of Daniel 3:24-28 or the angel of Daniel 6:22 with this heavenly man or the angel of Yahweh. Not only does the description that the fourth man in the fiery furnace come from Nebuchadnezzar, hardly a source of Israelite thought, but the term son of the gods aligns quite easily with divine sons of God terminology used of members of the heavenly host who are not Yahweh. In Daniel 6:22, his angel is ambiguous. All angels are under God's authority. Both these figures are best understood as normal divine agents in God's service, not the angel of Yahweh. Endnote. This commander cannot be Michael, because Michael is one among other chief princes. The visible Yahweh would have no such company. As we will see when we discuss Second Temple Jewish angelology, certain writers of that period conflate the two on the basis of three passages. 1. Joshua 5:14 speaks of the commander, Sar, of Yahweh's army. 2. Michael is Israel's prince, Sar, in Daniel 10:21. 3. Michael is the great prince who has charge of your people, in Daniel 12:1. Note, Second Temple period sources have Michael leading the great eschatological war for this reason. However, other Jewish thinkers assigned this role to Melchizedek, effectively conflating Michael and Melchizedek. See Chapter 5. Endnote. This thought trajectory is, of course, marred by the description of Michael in Daniel 10:13, one of the chief princes. If Michael is the commander of Joshua 5:14, then that commander is but one of the commanders of Yahweh's host, any of which could presumably have told Joshua to remove his sandals because he stood on holy ground. This suggests, in turn, that any number of angels could have occupied space with Yahweh in the burning bush, or been identified with Yahweh in Genesis 48:15-16. This simply isn't consistent with the way the angel of Yahweh is portrayed. Further, the claim of Joshua 5:14 is that the commander leads Yahweh's heavenly host. The prince is not assigned to the people of Israel, as in the Daniel passages. Michael clearly is not the highest authority in the heavenly sphere. He assists the divine man who speaks to Daniel. As such, it would be this unidentified figure to whom all members of the heavenly host, including Michael, report. Daniel 8:11 suggests that there is a prince over the entire host. In addition, Daniel 8:25 refers to a prince of princes. Michael is but one of the chief princes, and so he cannot be the prince that is over all the other princes. These descriptions are best understood as describing the commander, prince, of Yahweh's entire host, who is the angel of Yahweh, the second Yahweh figure encountered by Joshua. Note, Rowland compares the description of the man in Daniel 10 with the Son of Man and Ancient of Days in Daniel 7, the vision of Jesus in Revelation 1, and similar descriptions of heavenly figures in the pseudepigraphal texts Apocalypse of Abraham and Joseph and Aseneth. He argues that an identification is to be made between the man-like figure and the Ancient of Days. His explanation of the textual relationships, particularly an important Septuagint variant, follows. It is suggested that Apocalypse of Abraham, Joseph and Aseneth, and Revelation all reflect an exegetical tradition which A. knew of the identification of the man-like figure with the Ancient of Days, B. identified the human figure of 713 as an angelic being, and C. as a result linked this verse with the parallel angelophany in Daniel 10:6f. End note. There remains another point of proof for this identification. Daniel 8, the passage where the little horn is magnified, even as great as the prince of the host, and rise up against the prince of princes, has an intriguing parallel elsewhere in Daniel. Since most scholars identify the little horn as Antiochus IV, the little horn is the king described in Daniel 11:36-39, a description that fits Antiochus IV well. Putting the respective descriptions side by side is revealing. Daniel 8:11 and 25. The little horn became great, even as great as the prince of the host. The king representing the little horn shall become great. Without warning he shall destroy many, and he shall even rise up against the prince of princes. Daniel 11:36-37. And the king shall do as he wills. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak astonishing things against the God of gods. He shall not pay attention to any other god, for he shall magnify himself above all. These parallels lead some scholars to suggest that the titles of 8:11 and 8:25 are epithets that refer to God himself. This makes good sense if the prince of the host and the prince of princes is the angel of Yahweh, the prince of Yahweh's host in Joshua 5:14. The parallels cannot be adequately explained if the phrases in Daniel 8 point to Michael. Michael cannot simultaneously be one of the chief princes and the God of gods. Chapter 4.